Are you allowed to have a list of guests and a menu written as a list and read from that list on Shabbos? Apparently, that's not so simple. This is one of the halachic topics we're going to explore in this year. Welcome to our Gemara Shir, Gemara straight and simple. We are in Daf Kuf Mem Ches Amud Beis in Masechet Shabbos. Before we get to the Mishnah that talks about lists of guests, we're going to go back and recap on a different topic we started learning yesterday. We are good 10 lines from the Mishnah, the bottom of the page. Kuf Mem Ches Amud Beis. Be'ezras Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach. This year, like all my other shiurim, is dedicated for my father, the memory of my father, Rabbi Menachem ben Akiva, and for the quick release of all the hostages. V'chen Erev Pesach. Omar B'Yochanan. Let's just get into it. Omar B'Yochanan. B'Yochanan says, Makdish Odom Pischoi B'Shabbos, B'Chagigosoi B'Yom Tov. A person is allowed to be Makdish a Pesach. He can take a sheep on Shabbos that falls on Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach is the time you're supposed to bring your Korban Pesach. You don't have Korban Pesach yet. So now you have a Shepsala, you have a sheep that you want to consecrate to be Makdish for Pesach. The actual Hekdesh, to decide and say this animal will be for Korban Pesach, is allowed to be done on Shabbos. This is really not simple, as we'll discover later. This is what Rabbi Yochanan says. A Hekdesh is allowed to be done on Shabbos. So seemingly is what Rabbi Yochanan says. The Chagiga Soy B'Yom Tov, same thing, Korban Chagiga. Korban Chagiga is a korban that each and every person has to bring to Yerushalayim. Each and every family has to bring and eat Korban Chagiga. Korban Chagiga are Shlomim. Yeah, it's a Korban Shlomim, eaten partially by the owner. Okay. Hi. Chagiga Soy B'Yom Tov. The Chagiga is something that you bring on Yom Tov, and you can also be Makdish on Yom Tov. Okay? But that's a Chiddush Rabbi Yochanan, that certain korbanos, we're going to see later what's the common denominator, those korbanos can be Mukdash in Yom Tov. You have a Chulin Behema, that Behema's Chulin, you can place the name of Kedusha on the animal on Shabbos itself. Zog the Gemara, we're recapping a little bit. Name a Messiah, yeah, from the two dots. Yeah. Name a Messiah, let's try and see if the following Mishnah is basically supporting what Rabbi Yochanan says. Look what the Mishnah says. Our very own Mishnah, those who follow us know, we saw that Mishnah 2 days ago. V'chen Erev Pesach b'Yerushalayim. It says if a person is an Erev Pesach, he's in Yerushalayim, he just came from wherever, yeah, now, oops, he does not have a korban. That's very, very, very pressurizing. He's got to bring the korban Pesach today. What happens to those who don't bring a korban Pesach? We learn in this week's parsha, Kores. Oh, yeah, you think cleaning for Pesach is pressurizing? No way. You really got to bring the korban right there, right now. So now, Shechalius b'Shabbos, to add to the story that Erev Pesach happens to be on Shabbos. Now, what do? You got to go to the person who sells korbanos, the person who sells sheep. Yeah, so what do? Yeah, as we said before, you're allowed to buy on credit and sell on credit on Shabbos and Yom Tov if it's for the need of Shabbos and Yom Tov. So what do? You go to Mr. Sheep merchant, yeah, to the sheep Geschäft guy, to the sheep store. You leave your talis or any other item as a collateral in his store. Take a Pesach, take a sheep. Make sure it's no blemishes, all nice and clean and good and healthy. And you bring the korban, obviously. And what else do you have to do? You have to be makdish. You bought a secular sheep, you makdish the sheep, otherwise you can't bring it as a korban. You bring it as a korban. What about the money? Hey, mister, where's the money? Okay, after Yom Tov, you work out the money with the guy, with the seller. You want your money, you want your talis collateral back. He's going to tell you how much it costs, and all will be well. Oh, but one thing we see from here, that on Yom Tov, even though Yom Tov is on Shabbos, it's not Yom Tov exactly. I'm sorry, it's not Yom Tov. It is Shabbos, which is Erev Yom Tov, but it's Shabbos. You see, on Shabbos, you're allowed to be Makdish, right? Oh, that's good. That seems to be supporting what Rabbi Yochanan said. Even though it's Shabbos, and as we're going to see later, it's not simple at all to be Makdish on Shabbos. Here, the Mishnah seems to support Rabbi Yochanan that Good. You're allowed to be makdish on Shabbos. Zog the Gemara, no. The Gemara is going to reject that proof and say, no, our Mishnah does not necessarily support Rabbi Yochanan. Why? You know how our Mishnah can work out, and ukimta for the Mishnah. B'mimane acher imo al pischoy. Oh, David. B'mimane acher imo al pischoy. Yeah? Which means the mikor mikdash v'koy. Let me explain, as we said yesterday. The first understanding of the Gemara was, as I described it to you, we thought we're talking about a store, a geschäft, people sell esroigim, people sell sukkah boards, people sell korbanos. Wait and see, Mashiach is coming soon, yeah, it's a good business. Says the Gemara, no, that's not the case over here. We're talking about a friend. We're talking about you coming to Yerushalayim, all panting and sweating. Oh, where's the korban? Don't worry. We have a friend in Yerushalayim. Him and some other guys are partners in the korban. That's where korban Pesach works, right? It's called minu, subscription. Everyone is in the korban together. Now they're joining you. Let's say the korban costs 2,000 shekels. There are 4 families. 3 families already in. You're the 4th person. Great. You pay them 500 shekels after Shabbos, and then you have your share. Yeah, they're just giving you a share in the korban, your part in the korban. But the kedusha was there already. The other people already were makdish to korban. You're already jumping on the bandwagon. You're jumping on the boat of an already kaddish korban, and therefore that doesn't prove anything. Yeah, I'm not saying Rebbe is wrong, but you can't say Mishnah proves that he's right either. In other words, that korban could have been already mukdash before, and you're jumping in. You're taking your share in the already kaddish korban. Very good. Frag the Gemara, no. How can you tell me that? Are you telling me that on Yom Tov, the person actually is now added to the list? He's added to the subscribers of the Korban, to the owners of the Korban? That also doesn't work. Vanantnan, it's a Mishnah in Beitza. Ein nimnan al beima b'tchila b'Yom Tov. Boom. It says black and white. You're not allowed to be nimna, not allowed to add and become a partner in the korban. He doesn't really say korban there. Tosa says an issue with that, so we'll leave that aside. The Pashup Shat Kilu, you can't become partner in a behema on Yom Tov, and I saw the Meforshim there. The Tiferes Yisrael says it's a mekachumemkar. You can call it partner. We said maybe you're allowed to buy stuff in Yom Tov. That's a good question. But Lamaisa, the Pashup Shat is you're not allowed to be nimne and become a partner with other people on a behema. Yeah. So that doesn't work. Your answer doesn't work. Must be what? Must be that we're talking here about a kinyan, that I'm not buying anything yet. I got the behema, and all the money issues will be, sorted out later, like we wanted to say originally. Says the Gemara, no. Shiny hachor. Here it's different. Here the minui is allowed. Here you're allowed to be added to the korban. Why? Very good. Which means we're talking about old friends. We're talking a person rogil. What's rogil? Used to, accustomed. We're talking here about, let's say, all the Gemara here. All of us will join together, Bezras Hashem, to be one chabura. And let's say year after year, all our families are together. So if 1 year I come late, you already know I'll join the chabura. So even though I'm only joining it now, it's not really called that now we're starting anything new. It's just a question of time until I arrived. But I arrived, yeah? So therefore, it's considered as if the minu is done before Shabbos. And therefore, it's not an issue. Frag the Gemara, another question. Again, so what did we say? Up until now, we made an ukimta. We want to steer clear from Rabbi Yochanan business. Rabbi Yochanan said a very big chiddush. We're going to discuss it later. But we said, no. Rabbi Yochanan chiddush has nothing to do with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah did not talk about, being makdish on Yom Tov, right? We're talking about a group which already had a korban already pre-mukdash before Shabbos, and Mr. Latecomer is just joining them now, right? So there's no hekdesh on Shabbos. That's what we said. Frek the Gemara, wrong. Vatani Rabbi Yoshia. Here's as a brisa. It's not a Mishnah, but it's a brisa. By the way, Rabbi Yoshia, as the Gemara says at the end of Chul in many places, Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yoshia were the certified Balitanya. Not Balatanya, we know, yeah? In other words, the Bala Brisa. The Brisa of Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Chia is of a higher level. It's Kilu Yadua, that they were the masters of the Brisa. So here's the Brisa of Rabbi Yoshia. Says Rabbi Yoshia, listen to this. Now, roye is translated as a shepherd, but it also means what? The sheep merchant, the sheep seller. Ah, you hear that? This is business. This is not friends. You may go to a roya, to a sheep guy, to the roya, the shepherd, a rogil etzloi that is always used to go and always buy the korbanos ba'im, v'noisen loy tole lepischoi, that roya who is selling you the animal, he's not a partner, and he gives you tole for your Pesach, umakdishoi, boom, this is Shabbos, makdishoi, did you hear that? Makdishoi, Mr. Buyer is makdish the korban, upa, the yaitze boy, and then he's yaitze, he takes the box, he does the korban. That's before Rabbi Yochanan, black and white. It says that on Yom Tov, on Shabbos itself, Shabbos Erev Pesach, you're allowed to be makdish the korban. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan does have support from our Mishnah, from the Brisa. Seder, still good. So the Gemara, no. Hosam Nami, there also, the Gemara is rejecting that proof and says no. Kevin the Rogil Etzloi, the Brisa was careful. We're talking about a regular, old-time customer, a returning customer. He always comes there Erev Pesach and always buys his sheep from him. Some people always go to the same esrog merchant, come what may, right? Always to the same, right? We know the same thing people. So too, Rogil Etzloi. Because he always goes to the same roya, the roya is not stupid. The roya, the seller knows he's going to come. So you know what the roya does? The roya is a from guy, and he knows that Hekdesh and Shabbos is a problem. Now, this is a big chiddush for me. It was a chiddush, maybe not for you. You hear what I'm saying? The roya is makdish the Pesach for the owner. Wow. For the customer that's going to come there tomorrow. That's interesting. The roya knows, I know that Mr. Pechochovsky, my very old-time customer, my regular customer is going to come. I know that he wants his Pesach. I know he comes late. He's going to come there. It's going to be Shabbos already. So before Shabbos, I already select a nice animal and I makdish it for him. Fine, okay, Chiddush, but fine. And Besmadash Bala Chiddush. But you don't tell me that the Ekdish was on Shabbos. What's Rabbi Yochanan's point, which everyone goes crazy about? Are you allowed to be makdish on Shabbos? No, the ekdish wasn't on Shabbos. The ekdish was before Shabbos, and it was done by the seller, by the roya. How can he say that? The Brisa says black and white that he got it from the shepherd, who the customer, the buyer, and he's makdish. No, it doesn't say that the roya was makdish it on Friday. It says that the guy himself, the buyer, he was makdish, right? So the Gemara hekdesh ilim derabanan. Possibly because of the chiddush. In other words, that extra hekdesh that the owner himself has to do is an extra thing. It's an ilui. Rashi says, "Ma'ila be'alma shekdishu ba'alim." It's more mehudar. It's more of a hidder thing that the owner himself should be makdish, even though it's already kodesh by other people, right? But because Lamaisa, the person wants to, he's the owner himself, on Shabbos he does like an extra symbolic thing. An extra thing, I'm also being makdish, even though it's already kodesh. There's such a concept also by b'choros, a b'chor animal, the firstborn male of a sheep or cow, is what? Is automatically kodesh. You still have to say that it's kodesh. Like an extra zach, yeah? I'm sure there's a lot of lomdis here, but we're not learning lomdis now. Up until now, all is good. Rabbi Yochanan stayed as, there's no proof against Rabbi Yochanan or pro Rabbi Yochanan. What was Rabbi Yochanan's statement again? One thing he made that made the world shake, and that is what? Rabbi Yochanan says, on Shabbos itself, you're allowed to be makdish a korban. Wow. Frag the Gemara, okay, Rabbi Yochanan, the Mishnah is not for you or against you, but we're now facing another problem. Rabbi Yochanan never said such a thing. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halachic is the Mishnah. This line repeats itself throughout Shas. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says the famous line, halachic is tam Mishnah. What does halachic is tam Mishnah mean? If a Mishnah says something not on behalf of one specific Tana, the Mishnah said it as the narrator of the Mishnah, as like the guy in the microphone in the background. Yeah, like that's a simple understanding. The Mishnah says it not quoting Rabbi Akiva or Batar from Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah says so and so. Then halacha is like that. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi told us stylistically it's phrased in such a way because Rabbi Yehuda Anasi wants you to know that that's halacha. That's an axiom. And so you, Rabbi Yochanan, you're supposed to agree with a Stam Mishnah. Oh, Vetnan, look at the Stam Mishnah in Beitza, Lamed Vav Amud Beis, famous Mishnah that describes many, many Gzeres Derabanan. Look at some of the Gzeres Derabanan. Read and see. Loi Makdishin. You're not allowed to be Makdish on Yom Tov, let alone Shabbos, yeah? Veloi Marichin. Marichin, a person who says Erki Olai. You know, Erkin, each person in Yiddishkeit, we saw at the end of Chumash Vayikra, each person, yeah, has value. For example, a person over 60 is worth 15 shkolim, the moshel. A baby between a month and 5 years old is worth 5 shkolim. Between 5 and 20, worth 20 shkolim. Between 20 and 60, worth 50 shkolim. So the kids are, yeah, even if it's not your real value, there's like a set standard of the Torah. If I say erkacholai, I'm not asking how old you are, or erkiolai, then I have to bring 60 shekels, call them expensive ones. Oh, so let's say on Yom Tov or Shabbos, I makdish money to Beis Hamikdash by the value of a person. I'm not allowed to do that. Not allowed. Yeah, v'lo machrimin. Cherem is the form of Hekdesh. If it says cherem olai, then that item becomes belonging to Beis Hamikdash or the Koyanim. It's machloikis. In any event, all these things are what? Different forms of Hekdesh are not allowed to be done on Shabbos and Yom Tov. You know why? Very interesting. You know what I saw in there in the Mforsha Mishnah? Because it's a form of kinyan. Because you're like selling, you're giving to Hekdesh. You're moving from one ownership to the other. V'lo megbin Turbas U'Maisros. Oh, you're not allowed to take Turbas U'Maisros on Shabbos or even Yom Tov. Big Chiddush. Kol elu b'Yom Tov omu, kal v'chomer b'Shabbos. All these are not allowed to be Yom Tov, kol shken b'Shabbos. So can Rabbi Yochanan please explain, Rabbi Yochanan, you're the one who's teaching us, follow the Mishnah, be a good kid, a good yid, whatever the Mishnah says you do. And you're doing just the opposite. Rabbi Yochanan is telling us you are allowed to be Makdish on Shabbos. And the Mishnah basically says not to be Makdish on Shabbos. Yeah. And says the Gemara Lo Kasha, it's not difficult. Kan b'chovesh shekavur le'en zman, kan b'chovesh she'en kavur le'en zman. We already said it yesterday, we gave it in. Basically, chovesh shekavur le'en zman means it is time sensitive. That's why I described it so vividly at the beginning. Today is Shabbos, oh very nice. Everyone wants to keep Shabbos. But today is also the day of Erev Pesach. If you don't bring a korban at Erev Pesach, you get chorus. That's not nice. Yeah? Nobody wants to be there. Because it's time sensitive, maybe he should have done it earlier, but he didn't. You know, I don't know. His shrinker came to visit and he had a lot of lachats at work, whatever happened. I don't know. His wife gave birth to triplets, whatever happened. Yeah. He didn't have time to do what he had to do. Now it's time bound. Yeah. If you don't do the Hekdesh now, you're stuck. Yeah. Therefore, here Rabbi Yochanan says that's an exception to the rule. Kan b'chovesh ein kavur le'en zman. Ein kavur zman is a Mishnah in Beitza. The Mishnah in Beitza is talking, I want to bring a korban on Tuesday, right, on Wednesday, and I want to do the Hekdesh on Shabbos. Why? Do it tomorrow. Yeah, do it another day. You should have done it yesterday. Do it tomorrow. Why on Shabbos, right? And therefore, when there's no kavur zman, when the time is not pressurizing, it's not a pressurizing time, it's not time-bound, not time-sensitive, then you're not allowed to be makdish on Shabbos. Do it any other day. Why Shabbos? The Shenkin, if Shabbos happens to be the day that you have to bring the korban, then Rabbi Yochanan is teaching us an exception. He's not against the Mishnah. He's telling us the Mishnah never meant that. The Mishnah did not speak about my case, says Rabbi Yochanan, of when there's pressure there. And that's when you're allowed to be makdish the korban. That's what he said originally. Pischa b'Shabbos, chagigosa b'Yom Tov, right? It's Yom Tov, and now you have to bring the chagiga today. You have to bring the korban chagiga today, no other day to bring the korban chagiga, and therefore you have to do it now, and it's time sensitive, so you do it now. Okay. Next Mishnah, Baruch Hashem. Now we're going into the main part of the day. Oh, as I promised you, the introduction says the Mishnah: Moine odom es orchov ves parperoisov mipiv. A person is allowed to count the amount of guests that he wants to invite, and the amount of food, mipiv, verbally, orally, is allowed to do what? To make a cheshbon. Soon we'll see it's a chiddush. Because making cheshbonis on Shabbos is not simple, right? It's not good to do math on Shabbos. But for me, it's like avoiding Shabbos to do math. Even people who like math, maybe for them, I don't know. But you are allowed to calculate how many guests you're going to have and how much food in relation to the guests you're going to have. That's allowed, mipiv. What? No, even on Shabbos. Even on Shabbos. On Shabbos itself. Avaloi min haktav. That's going to be the issue today. Why? You're not allowed to have a list. I mean, you can have a list, but you can't read. That's halacha today. Can't read of a list. I have 10 people coming from Rabinowitz family, and I have 5 people from Ochana family, and I have 5 chocolate desserts. You know how women are, right? They always calculate billions of things before Yom Tov. I have 5 chocolate desserts and 6 vanilla desserts, and he likes this, and I have 10 pieces of chicken and everything. You're not allowed to read from that list on Shabbos. Yeah. Why? Oh, that will be the main issue today. The whole day today, what we're going to do is to understand why it's also to read from the list of guests and food on Shabbos. Now, continues the Mishnah to another case. Meifis Adam im Bonov im Bnei Beiso el Shulchan, belvat shelo iskaven lasas monok gdola keneged monok tana. What's Meifis? Pies. You know what's Mifala pies? Have you been here long enough to know what's Mifala pies? Yeah, lottery. Yeah, you won the pies once, Akiva? I never won. Yeah. So then what? Maybe 50 shekels once. So don't even try. So now, what's the pies? You're allowed to have a lottery between your kids, so to speak. I think there's a better word in English for that. It's not really a lottery. You're allowed to basically, let's say some kids like some pieces of chicken and other kids like other pieces of chicken. Science fiction, that never happens, right? I like this ice cream. Why did she get the nice ice cream and not me? Yeah, I see everyone's surprised. That's not, well, let's say it happens in theory, yeah? So let's say you say, Daddy says, stop the fighting. Let's do agrala, lottery. Let's just draw lots and decide she'll get the nicer piece. Whoever wins gets a nicer piece. So that is allowed to be done al shulchan at the table. As long as, and this Gemara will exactly explain, I'm not going to explain it now, I'll just translate. As long as there's no significant difference between the sizes. Let's say the one who wins the lottery, yeah, he has, you have different, I don't know, notes. Whoever gets a nice note with a smiley face, whatever, he's going to get a large piece, and the kid who got the frowny face is going to get a significantly smaller piece. That's not allowed. L'choira. The Gemara will discuss, there's a chizur mechzer here. The Mishnah is not complete. That will be discussed the next page. Now, Matirin Chaloshin Alakodshim B'Yom Tov Avalo Alamonos. Comes to Kohanim in Beis Hamikdash lehavdil. They're not little children, but still, some of them, there are different portions of meat that you eat from the korban chatos, korban osham even. There's no osham in Yom Tov, doesn't matter, korban whatever. Matirin Chalosh Kodshim B'Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to let the korban shlomim. Yeah. Shlomim is brought in Yom Tov. You're allowed to draw lots between the Kohanim on pieces of meat eaten in Yom Tov, the Kodshim, avloy alamonos, but not on the portions. What do you mean? Aren't you allowed? The Gemara will discuss what the Kohanim may do, what the Kohanim may not do. I promise you, Be'ezus Hashem, they will be discussed, but not today. Today, the name of the game is that business of what? Today, from now till the end of Shir, we'll discuss one question only, and that is what? Why? What's the problem of a Yiddish balabos, balabosta? All good. They have a list of guests, right? They have a list of food, and they want to read. They want to read. I'm not saying even, sounds like even reading. There's another question. We're talking about reading out loud or reading with your eyes. That is not a discussion right now. There is a shaila. We'll discuss it Be'ezus Hashem on Sunday, okay? Right now, let's just imagine that the reading itself is also, okay? So you're not allowed to read from that list of guests, which is also a list of food. Don't read from that list. Frag the Gemara, Memtes. What's Memtes? My time. Why? What's wrong with that? Machlekes Rav Beivai and Abaye. Rav Beivai Omar Gzera Shemayimchok. Oh, why? There is a Gzera, maybe you'll come to erase some of the guests. In other words, we're not talking about a person who already invited the guests. These are the guests that he's intending on inviting. It's very much more from Rashi if you read it carefully. Now, he has a shamish. Remember the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa? People then would have a shamish, would have a servant that was instead of a phone, and the shamish would invite the potential guests. Okay? Now, let's say the guy is reading from the list and he says, "Oi, I invited 35 people and I only have 29 pieces of chicken. Oy vavoy." So what is he going to do? He's going to erase one family from the list. I don't know, the Leibovitz with their 10 children are not inviting, right? And he quickly erase it, so the Shamish will not invite them. He's not uninviting. He decided not to invite them to begin with. So invite 3 families and not 4. Yeah? And that can happen on Shabbos itself. People will invite other people on Shabbos. Interesting, not like today. So because we have a Gzera, maybe you'll come to change your mind and erase and cross off, which is an av d'oraisa, av malocha of Moichek, you're not allowed to erase, whichever way you're erasing, that's another sugya. We have a concern. You may come to erase and cross off one of the names or two of the names. That's why we don't allow you to Bichlal have such a list and read from it. Okay. Abai Omar, Abai says all different gzera. Gzera shamika b'shitra dioitos. Oh, here we come to a very hot topic. Abai says no. Once you start with a list of calculations, right? I have 32 guests with one baby and one teenager and one vegetarian, right? You know all these, yeah? And I have 5 pieces of chicken and 2 carrots, v'chulei. So you're starting with calculations, and it's a piece of paper with cheshbonis in front of you. You know what kind of mindset you're developing now? You're reading papers with cheshbonis. Then the next thing on your paper, on your desk is what? Your water bill, your gas bill, your electricity bill. Such oinek Shabbos to read them, isn't it? So because those things are, maybe for some people it is, I don't know, are shita idiotis, these things are things that are shtar, these are documents of hediot, of non-Shabbos content, yeah, which means that's not allowed. Why? It's a posuk in the Novi. You're not allowed to be yeah, you're not allowed to do your own chafotzim on chefetz shemayim. You can't checkbooks or muktzah, bank statements, whether you're an overdraft or you have 10 million in your running account, it doesn't matter. The mere fact it's money dealings, those things are muktzah. You know, people. I once was the family. I saw a lady. She moved the checkbook. Yeah, not allowed to. Shabbos, chas v'shalom, it's muktzah. Let alone never not to read the stops of the checkbooks. Yeah, it's also to read. So that's a chashash. According to Abaye, if you come to read the list of guests, which is very nice and good, and the mitzvah chnosas orchim, but because you have calculations going on, you're in the wrong direction, mister. Because the next thing you read will be a bank statement, also numbers and things, right? And therefore says Abaye, stay out of any kind of, papers with foods and people, and don't read those. Okay? That's the Pashup Shot. There's a lot of questions here. I'm aware of it. I hope to discuss them on Sunday. What happens if it's only guests or only food, right? Reading out loud, reading. That will be discussed later. Let's just get first into the motion of the sugya, and we'll do more iyun on Sunday. Okay? Now it's weekend mode. Okay? My benayu. What? Oh, that question also is a question which is going to follow us through and through. What's the difference? What would be a practical difference between Rav Beivai that says the concern is you may come to erase, and Abaye that says you may come to say, now let me read my bank statement and my whatever, my internet bill. Yeah, what's my benai? When would be a difference between them? A case of a difference, an application. Answer number one. Ika benai, what's Aleph base? Ika benai, there's a difference between them. The kosav akoisel umidli. Let's say you wrote it not on a piece of paper like a human being. You wrote it on the wall, and the wall is very high up. Meaning the list that you wrote it very very high up, and you can't reach it on Shabbos. You can I don't know how you wrote, how you got there originally, but right now it's very high up over there. The list of guests, the list of foods, that list is there high up, 5 meters above your head. Yeah. So how much is 5 meters in American? How many feet? A lot. Yeah, it's very high up. If the concern like Rabbi Vai, you may come to erase, I'm not going to come to erase it. Yeah, it's going to take me a long time to climb up the ladder, but then I'll remember it's Shabbos. I'm not going to erase. If the concern is if you're reading cheshbonis of guests, you may come to read cheshbonis of water bill. Of course, it's a chashash. Who cares whether it's high up or low down? L'maisa, you read it from the wall. Next thing you do is read another paper of cheshbonis of your American bank statement. That's one way to explain the difference. The Gemara is now rejecting it. Says no. Frekt the Gemara. The Gemara is asking, why is that so? According to the one who says that the concern is you may come to erase. And therefore, if it's very, very high up, you won't come to erase it. It's just too high up for you. Wait, why isn't it concerned you may come to read the cheshbonis? Why the other man is right? Why aren't you concerned like Abaye? You may come, you're going to read it very nicely now high up there. You may come to open your checkbook and read the checkbook. Yeah, why aren't you concerned? The two. And another question on the same thing. Aren't you concerned you may come to erase the words even if it's very high up? I'll prove you otherwise from all the way Yud Beis Amud Beis. Tanya, we saw in the Brisa Yud Beis Amud Beis, Lo Yikra Lo Oner. Remember, years ago, we learned that that's halacha today. You're not allowed to read any reading material, almost, except for some things. By the light of a candle, what kind of a candle? You have a candle that's like a lamp, and if you read by that light, you come to tilt the candle, right? And get the oil to be more concentrated to get better light. So, lo yikalo, you're not allowed to read almost anything by the light of the candle. V'omar Rabba, and on that Rabba said, afilu guva shtei koimois. Even if the candle you're reading by is very high up, 2 floors above. Afilu guva shtei mirdois. Even if it's gava, like the mardea is a stick that you hit the animal with. It's like a tall thing. It's very tall high up. It's like a measuring rod. Afilu asara batim zal gavzeh. Wow. Even if it's 10 floors above where you are, you can still read by the light technically. Lo yikra. You're not allowed to read by the light of the candle that's very high up, even though chances are very, very slim, you'll tilt it. Which tilting? It's very high up. But, says Rashi, lo chilku, lo plug. Chachamim sometimes make exera that don't differentiate. So here too, why are you telling me? If your concern is that if it's on a paper, I may come to erase it, yeah, but if it's very, very high up, I won't come to erase it. No, Rabbi said otherwise. Rabbi said that once we make exera, we don't differentiate, whether it's just by shoulders, by your hands reach, or very high up. Exera is exera all across the board. So don't tell me there's a difference between having the list written high up or low down. Ella, that makes the Gemara reject and find a different case as an afkamina between Obeva and Abaye. Yikabenayu, a different case, the cost of a koisel umititi. He wrote it on the wall, low down, by the reach of your hand. Yeah, you wrote it by the kosel. Kosel means the wall. You wrote it by the wall, just where you can erase and do whatever you want. Oh, now the opposite. Lemando omer shemayim choik. According to the one who says the concern you may come to erase, and that's Rabbi Cheshinan. Of course, it's a concern. Yeah, you write it down, you read it. Oh, I can't invite that family of 10 children. I only have 5 pieces of chicken. Then what? You may come to erase it. It's very handy. By the way, you should know, throughout Shabbos, nobody's choshesh will do it b'mezid. You'll get so, out of it, you'll get so hysterical and, kind of pressurized, you may forget it's Shabbos and very quickly come to erase it. That's a problem. So that's a problem. The Madam al Shemaika, lo cheshinan, according to the one who's concerned that if I read this list, I may come to read the list of debts from the bank, there's no concern. Why not? Guda b'shtara lo michlaf. Guda is a wall. A wall and a shtar are not interchangeable. If I read something off the wall, if I read something from the wall, I'm not going to come to read from a paper. It's very different. In other words, by psychological association, what I read from a wall won't get me to read something from a paper. Yeah? And therefore, according to that man, Omar, Abaye, that's not a problem. As long as it's written on the wall, and he has no concern you may come to erase. Yeah, if you write it on the wall, you're not going to come to read your paper statements from Bezik, from the phone company. Frek the Gemara. Now this is also about to be rejected. Why? According to the one who's only concerned, if you read from this list, you may come to read from the other list. Once it's on the wall, we have a safety belt. You're not going to come to read from a paper because you read from the wall, and wall and paper are not the same. Why? So why isn't he concerned you may come to erase? Why not? It's very likely. It's so pressurized. You know it's so pressurizing because like kamsa and barkamsa. It's a very, very big doozy for you if he invites the wrong people. He may, if you don't erase it, then your shamish is going to get the list. Your wife sends you shopping with a shopping list, right? So if this shamish has a list of guests and it's not updated, you didn't cross them off, he will invite the family of 10 children and they'll have nothing to eat. Such pressure can cause the person to break Shabbos. So why aren't you concerned about it, Rav Abaya? Yeah, Ella. Therefore, the Gemara is going to give us now a third nafkamina. Yikabenayu dechayik atavla v'apinkas. A third case. It's not on the wall. It's chakuk. It's engraved. It's etched in a tavla. Tavla means today's not so common, a wooden board. Interesting. That's in the olden days. Sometimes, tavla, Rashi says. In other words, you have a wooden board, yeah, and you mamish engrave the names of the guests and the food. Now, Pinkas, we saw it in Daf Kuf Daled Amud Beis. That's something Kuf Daled Amud Beis, and that is what is like they had like ledgers. Pinkas is a ledger, not the ledger you think about. Ledger was a piece like a board of wax, and you would engrave into the wax. You'd like make the shape of the letters in the wax. Oh, so now that's interesting. Why would that be an nafkamina? Oh, in other words, to erase something that's engraved in, especially in wood, is very hard. By the time you get to do that, you'll remember it's Shabbos. To erase something from ink is very easy to erase the ink from cloth. They didn't have paper, they had cloth. Or to cross off. But to start etching, and even this, that takes so much time, but then you'll remember it's Shabbos, and there's no concern. According to the man that says, if you read one statement of the guest of Shabbos, you may come to read your water bill, your whatever, your bank statement. There is a chashash. Again, the Gemara rejects that also. Again, why don't they understand each other? According to the one that says that the chashash will come to erase, why isn't he concerned we come to read? Yeah, you're reading from a pinkas, from the engraved thing. You may come to read from a paper, your bank statement. Why isn't it a concern? Tell me why. I know what you're going to say, says the Gemara. It's different. A pinkas, a wooden board, is very different to paper. Oh, my bank statement are on a paper, right? The phone bill is on a paper, and this is on a wooden one. That's why it's not a concern. They're not interchangeable. Is that so? Ha ha! I'll prove you wrong from a brisa. Vatanya, it says in the brisa, Moine Odom, this is interesting, etiquette, social etiquette. Moine Odom kama mi bifnim v'kama mi b'chutz. The person may count, meaning may read from a list on Shabbos, how many guests are going to sit indoors and how many outdoors. Yeah? In other words, those indoors are more choshuv. Those outdoors are less choshuv. Yeah? Wherever you're machshiv. Yeah, the Rosh Hashiva, the Mashgiach, the Rebbe, they sit inside, and the other guy is outside. So you have to make a calculation by space and this, space control, how many inside, how many outside, the Kamamanas osid laniach lifneim, and how many dishes, how many courses will I serve them? Oh, and what does it say? That's okay to do. Michtav shal gabe koisel. Interesting. The Brisa says it's okay to do that as long as it's written on the wall, then you can read it from the wall, okay? But if the same list is written on a tavla, written on a wooden board, it's etched and engraved on a wooden board, that's not allowed. What's the story of this brisa? If it's written like by ink, right? Not etched, like I jumped the gun already. If it's written like on an ink on the thing on the board, what's the difference? Who cares if it's written on the wall or on the board? Elalav the chayik. Oh, it's engraved. It's etched inside the pinkas. The ktani michtav shal gabe koisel. Avelo michtav shal gav tadlo pinkas. Aha, you see that we are concerned. Black and white, it says, if you have your list on the wall, no problem. From reading from the wall won't get you to read from a paper. But if it's on a wooden board, if it's etched on a wooden board, we say that what? That's not allowed. Even though it's etched inside, because you may come to read from a regular paper. That's bad news. You see that pinkas is interchangeable with paper, not like you were suggesting before. Ella, now we make full circle. And it's a good time to finish soon, the shir. Ella, now we have to hold cup just a tiny bit. Le'oila, we go all the way back to square one. Now everything will be very clear. We're coming to the maskono. Le'oilam, the kosav a koisel umidli. The difference between the two opinions, whether the chashash is erasing or the chashash is coming to read your bank statement, shitra idiotis, is if it's high up on the wall. Okay, which means what? According to the one that says that the wall is okay, he believes that the wall will never be interchangeable with paper. And if it's written high up on the wall, you may not come to erase it. Life is good. High up on the wall. Wall and paper are not similar at all. You won't come to read your bank statement if you read something from the wall. You may come to erase it. No, it's high up there, no problem. And that's the opinion of Rabbi Vai. Abaye says no. Even if it's high up on the wall, who cares high up or low down? If you read from the wall, you may come to read through the paper. But the kakashalach de Rabba, but we rejected that because we said Rabba. What did Rabba say? But the tilting the candle, that Chachamim said. I'm sorry for the unexpected break because of technical reasons. So let's just finish off. So basically, the answer is with the kashalach the Rabba Tanoi. What Rabba said that you're not allowed to even read whatever is usher down below is usher even high up, and we don't differentiate whether you can technically do the avera or you can't. It's always usher. That's a machlekes Tanoim, and therefore Rabbi Vai will tell you, I hold of the Tanoim who believe that if you technically you can't climb all the way up there, it's allowed, then it's allowed. As we're going to see in the following brisa, the brisa we're going to see not now, but on Sunday, the brisa tells us there is an opinion that says that if the concern is you may come to tilt, to erase, to do, if it's high up and you want technically come to do it, then it's okay. Rabba held otherwise, legit. Rabba was machmir, and Rabba said no, whatever is also to do down here is also to do up there, even though you won't really do it, because we just make a general rule, a blanket isser. But we, in Agmor, Rabbi Vai, argues on Rabba. They're both Amoraim. Rabbi Vai says, no, I follow Tanoim that believe that it's okay to do something if you won't really come to do the Avera, such as having a list high up there, or to have the light high up there, because they won't really come to do anything about it. Thank you very much. Have a good Shabbos, everybody. Atzlocho, vracha to everybody. Full house today. Yay. Baruch Hashem. Next week, very strong. I hope to be every day, unless something happens. Shkoyach, thank you very, very much. And atzlocha uvracha. Thank you. Actually, I'm not sure if it'll be or not.